Let me ask you something that most people never stop to think about. Why do they want your reaction so badly? Seriously, why are there people who seem obsessed with poking, provoking, or pushing you? Not physically, but emotionally. They bait you with sarcasm. They drop passive-aggressive comments. They challenge you in front of others. Or worse, they imitate you, hoping you'll break character and expose your fear. And here's the trap. The moment you react, you've already lost. Not because they outsmarted you, but because you entered a game you didn't even know you were playing. The trap is reaction. Let's make this clear. Your reaction is their reward. When you snap back, they win. When you explain yourself, they win. When you lose sleep crafting a text message that sets the record straight, they win. Because in that moment, you've given them something far more valuable than your opinion. You've given them control over your emotional state. See, power games aren't played on paper, they're played in the air. The glances, the silence, the tension, the tone. And most people fall for the trick. They think if they just speak their truth louder, the problem disappears. They think clapping back means strength. But Stoicism teaches us something different. You always have the option of having no opinion. Marcus Aurelius, that's not passivity, that's strategy. Why they need your reaction. Let me break it to you gently. People who poke you are often powerless without your participation. They're not looking to defeat you. They're looking to activate you. Because if they can pull you into their chaos, their frequency, their emotional storm, they don't have to deal with your presence anymore. They've pulled you down to theirs. And this is why they need your reaction. To confirm they've entered your headspace, to prove to themselves that you're not as solid as you look, to convince others that you're just like them. But here's the trick, you're not reactive, you're not fragile, you're not someone who dances every time someone whistles. You're building something, you've got vision, discipline, energy to protect. And not everyone deserves access to it, the hidden economy of attention. There's something most people overlook. Your attention is a currency, and people are out here robbing you without saying a word. Every time you check that passive-aggressive comment, you're paying. Every time you mentally rehearse the perfect comeback, you're paying. Every time you let someone live in your mind rent-free, you're bleeding energy, and worse, you're telling your subconscious, this person's chaos deserves a seat in my inner world. That's dangerous, because once that happens, your creativity fades, your clarity fades, your focus fades, all because of a 15-second emotional spike that gave someone else authority over your state. The reactive state equals the submissive state. Now let's go a little deeper. In modern psychology, there's a pattern. The more reactive you are, the more subordinate you become. Let that sink in. Think about it. Who's in control in a room? The person who's calm or the one who's triggered, pacing, over-explaining, defending? Exactly. The person who's calm is the one who frames the room. They own the energy, because here's the truth most people never hear. When you react, you confirm that they have power. When you stay still, you reveal that they don't. And I get it. Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it's in your niche. Someone's copying you, stealing your words, taking credit, playing the inspired by game while building a weaker version of your blueprint. But listen, if you stop your momentum to chase a mosquito, who really loses? You. Let them copy, let them mimic, let them post, let them rant. because their whole identity depends on your next move. And when you give them nothing, you starve them, the game they want you to play. Every manipulator, every troll, every passive-aggressive coworker, they all want the same thing on element, not just online, but emotional. They're not after your logic, they're after your energy. They want you flustered. They want you unsure. They want you impulsive. Because if they can disrupt your stillness, they've won the war. Even if you think you're winning the argument, don't play the game. Don't let people train you to perform for their chaos. You're not a circus act, you're a fortress. The cost of constant response. Let me ask you something. What have you missed this week because you were too busy reacting? How many hours did you lose explaining yourself to someone who wasn't even listening? How many ideas died in your mind because your mental space was too cluttered with what someone said about you? This isn't about pride. This is about preservation, preserving your energy, your attention, your direction, because you don't owe the world your reaction. You owe yourself your peace, closing the first gate. Here's the truth. You don't need to say a word to protect yourself. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to prove you're unbothered. You need to be unbothered. And that starts with the most powerful decision you can make. Not every invitation deserves your attendance. Don't attend every argument. Don't enter every emotional arena. Don't explain yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. The moment you stop reacting, you start ruling, and that's what part 2 is all about. Stillness, control, and the Stoic strategy of outlasting noise without ever engaging it. You've heard the phrase, don't react. You've been told to stay calm, rise above, take the high road. But what if I told you that's not just spiritual advice? It's a strategic weapon. Stillness isn't about being passive. It's not about staying quiet because you're scared. Stillness is power, under control. It's self-mastery in motion, the ability to choose when, how, and if you respond at all. And in a world where people are addicted to triggering each other for likes, noise, and emotional leverage, your calm presence becomes terrifying. What stillness really means. Let's redefine the word. Stillness doesn't mean silence. Stillness doesn't mean you don't feel things. Stillness doesn't mean you're numb. Stillness means you've seen the game before and you're no longer playing it. You know your worth and don't need to defend it. You understand that the loudest person in the room isn't the strongest. They're usually the weakest. You don't owe the world an explanation for every breath you take. Because here's what Stoicism reminds us. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius, that's stillness. That's control. Reactive energy is leverage for manipulators. Let me break it down even further. When someone triggers you, they don't want a resolution. They want to use your energy to control the narrative. Ever had someone twist your words into something you never meant? Ever seen someone pretend to be the victim after they provoked you into snapping? It's not an accident. That's power through provocation. They use your reaction as their evidence. But when you don't give them what they want, when you stay composed, measured, grounded, the game breaks. Suddenly, they're exposed. Suddenly, their emotional bait has no bite. Suddenly, the mirror turns back on them, and they hate that. You starve the fire by refusing to feed it. Imagine an argument like a fire. Your response, Even your silence, when it's bitter, can be gasoline. But when your stillness is anchored, calm, rooted in wisdom, you starve the flame. That's when people start scrambling. They repeat themselves, they escalate. They say things just to make you speak. Because stillness is confronting. It holds up a mirror to people's chaos, and they can't stand to see it. If you want to destroy someone without saying a word, starve them of the chaos they depend on. Modern Stoic proverb. Frame control. Who sets the emotional tone? Here's something high level, something the Stoics practice without needing a label. Frame control. Who sets the emotional tone in the room? Who determines what matters and what doesn't? If they bait you into reacting, they own the frame. If you pause, breathe, observe, and choose, you own it. Frame isn't volume. It's not dominance. It's emotional leadership, and stillness is the ultimate form of leadership. You walk into a room and your calm doesn't flinch. Your face doesn't dance for approval. Your energy doesn't shift for clowns. That unnerves people, because in a culture of overreaction, overexposure, and oversharing, someone who guards their peace is rare, and rare equals powerful. Everyday applications of strategic stillness. Let's talk reality. How do you practice this in your everyday life? Here are 3 real-world situations, and how to respond the Stoic way. 1. The online troll. They tag you, mock you, twist your content. They want attention. Stoic move. Don't repost, don't react. Let the silence echo louder than their noise. Your growth will offend them far more than your response ever could. 2. The fake friend who starts acting fictitious. You feel the shift, you hear the tone, they're baiting you with passive aggression. Stoic move. Don't call them out. Withdraw. Replace performance with presence. If they want clarity, they will ask. If not, you just reclaimed your space. 3. The coworker who copies you. Every idea you share becomes their next talking point. You want to scream, but why? Stoic move. Let them chase. You're the source. You're the blueprint. And no one copies what's behind them. Let the copies fade. The original always evolves. Emotional detachment, indifference. Now here's a myth we need to break. Being emotionally detached doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care so much about your inner peace, your focus, and your vision that you refuse to let nonsense hijack your energy. You are not cold. You are clear. You are not arrogant. You are anchored. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They were deeply emotional. They just didn't let emotion run the show. They mastered the pause. And in the pause is where power lives, who you become in the pause. Let's end this section with something real. You are not who you are when you speak. You are who you are in the pause before you speak. That's your true self. That's your true control. That's where you break patterns, hold the frame, and become someone no one can manipulate anymore. So if you've ever been called too quiet, too cold, too calm, smile. They're not insulting you. They're exposing themselves. They're admitting you don't move like them. And that means you've already won. You've learned why people crave your reaction. You've seen how stillness becomes your shield. But now we talk strategy. How do you walk away and still win? How do you remove your energy in a world that feeds on your presence? Because real power doesn't just hold its ground. Real power disappears and leaves a silence no one knows how to fill. Presence is a privilege, not a gift. Here's something you need to internalize. Your presence is not a default setting. It's not something people are automatically entitled to. It's a privilege, and not everyone qualifies. Just because someone once sat at your table doesn't mean they still deserve a seat, especially if all they've done lately is spill on the piece you built. Letting go isn't petty, disengaging isn't disrespect. Silence isn't war. It's simply your way of saying, I don't negotiate with chaos anymore. The disengagement move. Quiet, sharp, unapologetic. So what does disengagement really look like? It's not slamming doors. It's not vague posts. It's not, I'm cutting people off rants. No, the real move, you stop being available. No more showing up out of obligation. No more conversations that leave you drained. No more texts you draft out of guilt instead of clarity. You don't announce your withdrawal, you just disappear from their reach. That's the part they don't know how to handle, because they expected an argument. They expected you to fight for your space. But when you give them nothing, no closure, no explanation, no flinch, you hit harder than any words ever could. You win by not playing their game. Let's get tactical. People who thrive on control, manipulation, guilt, they all operate the same way. They create games with unspoken rules and then punish you for not playing. So the Stoic response, don't just ignore the rules, ignore the entire game. Let them gossip, project, mock, mimic, spin stories. Let them do it all while you build in silence. Because in 3 months, 6 months, a year, they'll still be talking. And you'll be somewhere they can't reach. Why imitators always lose. Let's talk about the most subtle form of attack, imitation. They copy your niche, your phrases, your tone, your posture, your entire vibe. At first it feels violating, almost like theft. But zoom out, ask yourself, why do people imitate? Not because they hate you, but because they want to become you. They don't believe in who they are, so they start borrowing who you've built. But here's what they'll never understand. They can mimic your look, but they can't copy your internal stillness. They can't duplicate your peace. They can't fabricate your discipline, because all of that was earned, not posted. So the strategy? Don't call them out. Don't feed their insecurity. Just let time do what time does best. Expose who was built and who was borrowed. The power of absence. Now we go deeper. You've tried presence, you've tried boundaries, you've tried calm, but now it's time to try absence. Strategic, purposeful, silent. When you leave a space, emotionally, mentally, energetically, something magical happens. You stop performing, you stop explaining, you stop editing yourself to fit an audience you never needed. And the people who once fed off your reactions, they start to spiral, because without your attention, they're just background noise again. You don't need to silence them. Just stop turning up the volume. Modern Stoic reminder. Disengagement is not weakness. It's the final evolution. We're taught that winners dominate, that to win, you need to clap back, show up, stand tall, prove a point. But here's the truth. The final form of power is stillness. The final form of strategy is disengagement. Because it means you know who you are. You don't chase correction. You don't explain your peace to people who profit from your pain. Disengagement isn't giving up. It's refusing to be pulled down by what you've already outgrown. It's you saying, I've already won. Not because I beat you, but because I stopped playing with you. One last reminder, let them talk. They will talk. Let them. They'll say you've changed. Let them. They'll say you're arrogant. Let them. They'll call your peace ego, your absence cold, your silence childish. Let them. Because every second they spend analyzing your calm is a second you spend building your legacy in peace. So what now? Take inventory. Ask yourself, who's still getting reactions they haven't earned? Who's still sitting at your emotional table but only ever brings noise? What battles are you still attending out of habit, not conviction? Now choose silence. Choose absence. Choose disengagement, because you don't owe the world your voice. You owe yourself your freedom. And the moment you decide that, you've already destroyed everything they tried to build against you without saying a word.